over me, scenting me in his semen. His hand leaves my neck, and he kisses me roughly before getting off the couch. I lie here and look up at him when he says, "Don't clean that off, and don't wear any perfume tonight." I sit up, and a few drops of his cum roll down between my breasts. "Lucky for me, my dress doesn't have a plunging neckline," I tease with a smile, knowing he gets off, leaving his mark on me. "I'm going to take a hot shower," he says, and then kisses my forehead. I admire his firm ass as I watch him walk to the bedroom. While he's in the shower, I take my time doing my makeup and hair. The dress may not have a plunging front, but the back does, so I curl my hair and wear it in a ponytail at the base of my neck, so that my scars will be covered. I keep my look simple and clean with no jewelry. I smile when I look over to Declan, who's now fastening his kilt. The Caledonian Club is a private Scottish club here in London, which I was pleased to learn because Declan in a kilt is about the hottest thing I've ever seen. This is the first event we are attending as a couple, and it feels good to be getting ready and sharing this moment together, a moment we had to work so hard to get to, a moment so many probably take for granted. I slip on my gown and smooth down the fabric that contours closely to my body. It boasts a high, round neck, concealing the dried cum that's all over my chest, and flows to the floor in a sweeping, fluted hem. The deep green flatters my red hair, and also complements the green in Declan's plaids. I stand in front of the mirror and look myself over with restless hands. "Why are you fidgeting?" Declan asks when he steps behind me. "You seem nervous." "I am," I admit as he runs his hands up and down the length of my arms. "Why? You must have gone to hundreds of events like this in Chicago. You're an old pro." "Yeah, but I was always pretending. I'm a good actress, but this is the first time mingling among the upper crust as me. I'm not hiding behind a facade anymore." He plants a kiss on my shoulder. "The real you is so much better than the lie." "I don't know about that." "I do," he says, and then turns me around. He looks me over from head to toe. "You're incredibly stunning." I take hold of Declan's hand to quell my nerves when we arrive at the mansion that was built in the early 1900s. He smiles down at me as we walk to the entrance. When we step inside, my eyes take in the ornate ambiance. The walls are painted ivory with rich gold accents, and heavy ruby drapes fall from the ceiling to the floor. Oil paintings hang from the walls and glow beneath the opulent chandeliers. The wood floors that lie beneath the carpet creak under my feet as Declan leads me through the club that has a wealth of history here in London. I take in the men dressed in their kilts and fly plaids, and the women in their elegant gowns. And suddenly, without my mask, I feel like an imposter, garbage wrapped in silk, and my stomach turns. So I quickly decide that even though I have no clue who I am, I'll do my best to fake it. The last thing I want is to show Declan any more weakness. As we walk into the party, I stiffen my spine and feign my place in society with my head held high like I've done for years. "Declan," a gentleman who looks to be in his 50s calls out. "It's been a long time since we've seen you." The two of them shake hands. "It's good to see you, Ian. How have you been?" "Busy as ever," he says before turning his attention to me, asking Declan, "And who's this lovely lady?" "You're a charmer," I lightly flirt, and then introduce myself. "Elizabeth Archer." "Lucky man," Ian notes, to which Declan responds while looking over to me, "Extremely lucky." We continue to mingle, and Declan introduces me to old friends and a few businessmen and their wives. He drinks his typical scotch, and I sip champagne. We share a few dances, and when Declan can't help himself, he whispers his obscene thoughts in my ear. "I want to take you to another room and suck on that pretty little clit of yours until you come in my mouth." I drop my forehead to his shoulder as he speaks to me, my neck igniting in heat with each of his obscenities. "Just thinking about the taste of your pussy gets my cock." "Declan!" a tall woman with long dark hair says, interrupting our private moment. "I had no idea you were going to be here." Annoyance rankles me when she pulls Declan in for a hug. "Last-minute move," he tells her, composed as ever. "Move? You're living here now?" "I am." "So I take it you purchased the land to build on?" she asks, and a trill of jealousy creeps alive in me with how much she knows. "Davina, this is Elizabeth," he introduces. "Yes, I remember you. You were at the charity gala in Edinburgh last month, right?" And then I remember. She was Declan's date that night, hanging on his arm and constantly by his side. "That's right, and you are—" "An old family friend," Declan answers for her. "Practically brother and sister," she adds with a big smile. "Although I do fondly remember our wedding. How old were we?" 10, 11 maybe. Watching them go back and forth with such ease turns that jealousy into full-blown spite. "Sounds charming," I interject with mockery, and when I do, I can feel Declan's eyes hurling daggers at me, but I don't engage. Davina continues to wear her pretentious smile, adding, "The shortbread and jam reception wasn't all that elegant, but it still makes for good memories." "Well, as much as I'd love to hear more about that humble reception of yours, you'll have to excuse me." As I walk away from the both of them, I wonder if the feelings swarming inside me are anything like what Declan feels, because if I could put my mark on him like a dog claiming ownership, I would. I want to lock him up and pretend he never had a life before me. And then I have to question how friendly they've been, because it was only a few weeks ago she was on his arm as his date. Red heat slithers up my neck, and before I explode, I rush out the doors and into the chill of the night. Clouds of vapor escape me with my heavy breathing. Never in my life have I felt threatened and jealous over a man. But then again, never in my life have I been in love. I loved my brother, but in a very different way. I knew he fucked other women, lots of other women, but never did I care. And just to know that this woman has had more time with Declan than I have is enough to ignite this thrashing inside me. "What are you doing out here?" Declan asks from behind me. "Did you fuck her?" I seethe quietly so passers-by won't hear. He takes me by the arm and nearly drags me around the building to the parking lot in the back, pushing me against a random car. He isn't happy about my question, but I ask it again. "Did you?" "Would it make you mad?" My anger grows. Answer me." "Yes," I spit in hostility. He presses his chest against mine, fury roiling in his eyes when he asks, "Tell me how it makes you feel to think about my dick in another woman's pussy." In a sudden flash, I slap him hard across the face, but he barely flinches. "Go ahead. Hit me again." "Go to hell." "That outrage you feel," he says through gritted teeth, "that rage mixed with passion and jealousy, could never amount to what you made me feel. You let me fuck you, fall in love with you, all the while knowing you were fucking your husband. And then I find out you were also letting your brother fuck you. And you have the nerve to question me." He takes a pause, pinching his eyes closed before opening them again and continuing. "Do I need to remind you of all the fucked up ways you destroyed me?" "No." "I didn't think so. And to answer your question, no, I've never fucked her. Never wanted to." "She was your date." "Yes," he responds. "She was. Like I told you, she's an old friend. Our families were close, and we grew up together. She's attended many events with me in the past, so I didn't have to go with random women. But now I have you." Guilt eclipses jealousy. "I'm sorry." "There should be no doubt in that heart of yours that you belong to me. Everyone in that room knows it. My cum is all over your skin, and yet you feel threatened by another woman. You want to know my past, because it isn't that interesting. I've never been in love, not once. I've dated less than 5 women in my life, but I never loved any of them. Did I fuck them? Yes. Have I fucked others? Yes, but not many. Casual sex isn't really my thing. I've spent my life working hard, trying to live up to my father's expectations. Work was always my main focus. And then there was you. You came into my life and turned everything upside down." I don't know what I'm doing, I admit. I hate that you've seen so many of my weaknesses. I love you, there's no question, but I don't know how to do this the right way. You don't fool me. You're the strongest woman I know. He cups my face in his hands, dips his head down to my level, and looks deeply into my eyes, adding, But you're weak, too, and when you let me see that part of you, it only makes me love you more. You and I have been through hell and back, and this isn't going to be easy for either one of us. I slip my arms around his waist and rest my head against his chest. Declan presses his lips to my head in a tender kiss. You have nothing to worry about, you hear me? Yes. Come on, he says. Let's go home. We can go back in. I've had enough socializing for one night. Let's get out of here. The drive back to the apartment is a short one, and when we walk through the door, I kick off my heels. Declan gets the fireplace going, and we simply hold each other as we lie on the couch. We settle into the silence and darkness, too lazy to slip out of our formal wear. I soak in the heat from his body while he runs his fingertips along my spine. After a while, Declan's phone rings. I'm edging on sleep when he takes the call. McKinnon. Yes? Let him up. He ends the call and gently brushes my hair back. Lachlan's here, he tells me, and I groan, not wanting to get up. A couple minutes later, there's an abrupt knock on the door, and when Declan opens it, Lachlan rushes in. I've got it, he announces urgently, holding a sheet of paper. What is it? I question, standing and walking towards him. He comes straight to me, passing Declan, and hands me the paper. The passenger manifest. Chapter 11. This couldn't have gone any better, the PI that I hired a few days ago tells me. Were you able to plant the device on him? Even better. I followed Stroud from his hotel to a residential building. It wasn't long before he emerged right out the building's front doors with a woman. I trailed them as they walked to a department store, he recounts as I sit in my derelict cubicle and listen. The woman was in the fitting room when he became distracted with a phone call. As soon as the woman walked out to the shopping racks, I figured her phone would have to do, since I didn't see a way to get to Stroud's. It only took 30 seconds to find her cell phone in her purse, pop out the SIM card, and replace it with the tracker SIM. Why the fuck do we care about some chick? You were supposed to plant it in Stroud's phone. This is when you're going to thank me, he says with a bout of pride. I pulled the data stored on her phone, and that woman is Archer's daughter. He has a daughter? Elizabeth Archer. She is exactly who we need to be following. It has to be her who's looking for Archer. I looked into her, and it seems she went straight into foster care when Archer was arrested. Holy shit, I murmur in astonishment. I say we keep quiet and allow her to lead us to our point of contact. I agree. I'm now adjusting my surveillance off Stroud and onto the daughter. I'll call you with any updates. Chapter 12. Hours have passed since Lachlan delivered the passenger manifest, and I've already completely scoured it. My heart sank a little when I didn't see the name Steve Archer. I knew his name wouldn't be on it, but all reasonable thought had vanished in that moment. Declan immediately pushed Lachlan out when my emotions started getting the best of me. I tried to rein it in as best I could, since Declan is under the impression I'm taking the prescription that's supposed to help these stress-induced meltdowns. But I couldn't deafen myself to the piercing ring in my head. It was painful and sent me into a mild panic. After I calmed down, Declan suggested I take a break, get a good night's sleep, and revisit the manifest in the morning. But I can't do that. My father is on this sheet of paper, I know it, and I can't sleep until I find which name is his. Sitting in Declan's office while he's sleeping in the other room, I continue to enter in each name into a People Finder database. I'm not even sure what I'm looking for to guide me in one direction or another, but I jot down any information that pops up for each male passenger. There were 122 men on that plane. 122 different paths to follow, but only one will lead me to my dad. This particular flight was based out of a large hub in Dallas, so the plane is comprised of passengers from all over the states. I star the ones that have a home address in Illinois, but truth is, he's most likely somewhere else if he's hiding out. My eyes strain against the glow of the laptop in the dark room, but I keep going, entering in the next name, Dennis Lowry. What are you doing? Declan's voice startles me, and when he flicks on the lights, I shield my eyes for a moment as they adjust to the brightness. I couldn't sleep. He walks over to me, rounding the desk to see what I'm up to, and when I look up at him, he's annoyed. I told you to wait until the morning. I know, What? Want to give yourself another anxiety attack? Because let me tell you something. That episode you experienced earlier. His words falter, and I can tell how much my panic attack affected him. You can't treat your body like this. You're worn down and sleep-deprived. Then help me, because I won't be able to sleep knowing that I'm holding his name in my hand. The last time I was this close to him was 23 years ago. How am I supposed to sleep? How am I supposed to be patient? Raking his hand through his sleep-tousled hair, he releases a heavy breath and succumbs to my eagerness. Will you start a pot of water for coffee? Relieved and grateful for his help, I jump up and let him take a seat, then head to the kitchen to fill the kettle and grind the beans for the French press. I move around the kitchen and gather a few things for the coffee tray. When the kettle whistles, I pour the water into the glass carafe and over the grounds. I walk back into the office and set the tray down on the desk. Come here, darling, Declan says, voice still scratchy with sleep. He pulls me onto his lap and continues working. I smile down at him, comforted to know his need to be close to me. His fingers type away, entering another name into the search engine, and then he transfers the details into the spreadsheet I've been putting the information in. Is there something in particular you've been looking for? He asks. No, I was just getting the addresses and phone numbers and seeing if I recognize any of their listed relatives. If he's changed his name and is hiding, I doubt you're going to come across anyone from his past. Yeah, I sigh. You're probably right. I reach over and pick up a mug from the tray and push the press down to pour his coffee. Thanks. He takes a sip and then adds, There are a few large business-oriented social networking sites for professionals online. We can search all the names through those databases. Most profiles contain pictures. I grab my phone, anxious to find the man I've been dreaming about my whole life. Give me the name of one of those sites. I'll search while you're finishing up with the contact information. Seconds later, I'm on the world's largest business network, punching in the names, starting at the top of the list. The incessant ticking of the clock greets the sun as it rises behind the cloud-covered sky. I look over from the couch I'm now sitting on to Declan, who has just finished the last of his coffee while still at his desk. Sounds of the clock, tapping keys on the laptop, and raindrops plopping against the window are the only noises in the room. How are you holding up? There's nothing, I respond in frustration. Half of these people aren't even on these sites, and the ones that are, half of those don't even have a profile picture. I'm hitting dead ends myself. Although I feel defeated, I'm not hopeless, because it's always been my dad who's kept that hope alive when I wanted to give up. Even if it were only a minuscule piece of hope that remained in my heart, I couldn't let it go, and that strength to hang on was always for him. I've got to take a break, Declan eventually says, pushing his chair back from his desk. He rubs his eyes, and I can see the reddened fatigue in them. He holds out his hand for me, saying, Come on, you need a break too. I can't. Elizabeth, put the phone down. You're going to tire yourself out to the point you'll make yourself sick. If you want to find him, you need to get some rest so your body doesn't give out on you. But it isn't a request, Elizabeth, he states firmly. And it isn't meant to be a test of his authority, but rather a display of concern for me. It's clear I worry him, so I don't protest again. I take his hand and allow him to lead me back to bed. He curls his body around mine as I lie with my back to his chest, but I never fall asleep. My mind won't quiet down enough for me to relax. Memories flood, playing reels of my past, tea parties, bedtime stories, scratchy beard kisses, and scooter rides around the neighborhood. He's so vivid in my head. His eyes were unnaturally bright, and his smile. Just the thought pricks my heart in needling pains. Quiet tears slip out and roll onto the pillow beneath my head, and I wonder if he had been looking for me during the years I wasn't me. Did he just give up when I was living as Nina? Does he know that I devoted so many years of my life to destroying the man who destroyed him? Does he want to find me as much as I want to find him? Shh, darling. Declan breathes into my hair, and I'm suddenly aware of my vocal whimpers. Do you think we'll find him? I ask in weak hiccups. Yes. It might take time, but I will find him for you. You know, when I was little, after he was taken from me, I spent the first few years being kicked out of every foster home I was placed in, I begin to tell him. Why? I would find ways to sneak out in the middle of the night. For the most part, it was me climbing out of my bedroom windows. You were only 5, though. Where did you go? Anywhere. I look back now and feel so bad for the girl I was. A girl so desperate for her dad that she would roam the streets in the middle of the night. Declan moves to prop up on his side to look down at me and wipes my tears. When that foster home realized that I wouldn't stop sneaking out, no matter how much they tried to set up preventions, they'd call my caseworker to pick me up and deliver me to the next family who was willing to take me. Eventually, I went through too many homes, and I was sent down to live in Posen, where I wound up staying for good. Why didn't you try to leave that house like you did all the others? Because of Pike. Because for the first time since my dad, I had someone who loved me and cared about me, I explained through lamenting pain. I was more terrified to lose him than being locked away and tortured. Declan's muscles constrict when he screws his eyes shut. It's an anguished display he can't control, and I suddenly feel guilty for putting that weight upon him. I reach out to touch his arm, and he nearly recoils, causing me to jerk my hand back. I'm sorry. No, he snaps, blinking his eyes open. Don't ever be sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I want you to talk to me, he says, cutting me off. I want you to feel safe enough to unload all your pain, because I want to carry it for you. I want it free from your soul, so I can bury it deep inside mine. I touch his grief-stricken face and tell him, I don't want to be your martyrdom. I want to be the thing that makes you happy. You do make me happy, he affirms. You do. I'm happiest when I'm with you, always. Even in our darkness, I'm happier than what I am without you. He drops his head, kissing me, sliding his tongue across my lips, and with my hands tangled in his hair, he looks intently down at me. You're not my martyrdom. You're my profligacy. Declan. I listen to Elizabeth as she continues to open up to me more. She tells me a story about the time her father let her put makeup on him. She laughs through her tears as I listen, combing her hair with my fingers and licking away the salts that crystallize her heartache. Each granulated fragment I take for myself, freeing her a tiny piece at a time. After a while, her guard is down enough that when I suggest a sleeping aid, she takes it without a fight. I lie with her, watching her lull into a peaceful sleep before going to shower and dress. She still remains in my bed, in my sheets, her red hair splayed over the pillow, her milky skin with faint reminders of her kidnapping, her petite body curled into a ball. One could look at her and never believe the titanic life she's endured. She poises herself as strong, but it's her cracks that cause me to stumble and fall, making me love her even more. I'm a greedy man, and to know that her weaknesses make her more dependent on me feeds my avarice. But at the same time, I get off on her strong-willed feistiness. She's a melange that appeals to all my facets, and allows me to freely indulge in my nefarious needs that other women would take high offense to. But Elizabeth has this unique way of submitting to me without being submissive in nature. She's enigmatic. My phone goes off, pulling me away from the room where my love sleeps. When I answer, it's security needing permission to let Lachlan up. I called him as soon as Elizabeth fell asleep, because I need to talk to him about why he's been communicating clandestinely with Camilla. "Morning," he greets when I open the door. "We need to talk," I say, and then turn to lead him into the office. I sit at the desk and he takes one of the seats opposite. "You look like shit, McKinnon." "Long night, as you can imagine," I respond. "How's Elizabeth?" "Anxious, stressed, confused," I tell him. "She's sleeping now, which is why I called you over to talk." "Let's talk." "Camilla," I state, and when I do, I note a hint of nerves in Lachlan, restless hands. "Go on." "Last week, when I answered your phone, she thought I was you. She called you baby. When I confronted her about how she knew you, she told me I should ask you. So, as a man I hired because of the implicit trust I have in you, tell me why that trust shouldn't be obstructed by this." "Like I told you before, Camilla and I go way back." He stops his nervous hands and folds them in his lap. "She's actually the reason I stopped working for your father. We had a long relationship and were engaged when I found out she was sleeping with Cal. She didn't have the nerve to tell me, but the close proximity in which I worked with your father, it was bound to surface." "Jesus," I mumble under my breath, uncomfortable that I'm having him divulge this embarrassment. "But if I'm not only going to put my life and trust into his hands, but also Elizabeth's, I need to know everything to make sure there are no hidden agendas. Without question, I kicked her out of my home, and it came as no surprise that she went from my house to Cal's," he continues. "That was the last day I worked for him. That is, until a lifetime after all that happened, my phone rang. To my surprise, she was still with the bastard. And an even bigger surprise, I find out he never married her." "Why did she call you?" "For help. Your dad had just been arrested." "Wait," I say, stopping him. "You mean recently?" "A little over a month ago." Agitation gets me and I lash out at him. "You knew he was in jail this whole time and never told me? What the fuck, Lachlan?" "He didn't want you to know. Said you two had some pretty harsh words before you moved back to Scotland from Chicago." "So explain how it goes from a dissolved friendship to him confiding in you from jail." "He needed my help. I gave him over a decade of my loyalty. Bad blood or not, he felt I was his last resort for confidentiality." "And you just gave it to him? That doesn't add up, Lachlan." "Perhaps it was curiosity," he defends. "I fucking despised your father and Camilla for what they had done right under my nose. So, imagine my shock when I find out he's in jail, and she's left high and dry. Karma had done her job, but I wanted to bask in the wake of her achievement. I humored him, and lent him the false comfort of an old friendship. Baneful. Which is why I didn't tell you." "Because he's my father?" He nods, and I lean back in my chair, clasping my hands in front of me. "He's a piece of shit," I lash out in hate. "He's spent his whole life virulently criticizing my every move in this world." "He's a narcissistic bastard. But I had been unaware of any discord between the two of you until he told me about the confrontation the two of you had after you'd been shot." "Our issues go way back," I say. "That doesn't explain why Camilla is calling you." "She thinks she can run back to me. She calls, sobs her pathetic story, and thinks I'll take grace on her. She's delusional." "And your loyalty?" He leans forward with a leaden stare, stating adamantly, "My loyalty is with you and that girl in the next room." I then lean forward too, resting my forearms on the desk and brutally threaten, "It better be, because if I find out otherwise, I promise you, your head will be the next one I put a bullet in." My words cause him no hesitation, not even a blink, a steady sign of his integrity. This man knows what I'm capable of. He's seen it with his own eyes, so he's fully aware of the repercussions if I find out there's fault in his word. Chapter 13. Elizabeth. The smell of the black pepper tenderloin Declan's preparing fills the apartment, causing my belly to growl. The past few days I've struggled to eat and even sleep. I keep going over that manifest incessantly. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy, but I can't stop myself. Declan practically had to force-feed me a sleeping pill last night just so I could get some rest. I was pissed and lashing out at him. "Why aren't you trying harder to find him?" I screamed as he fought to hold me down. "I'm doing everything I can, but I don't know what he's hiding from or the threat we face when we do find him." He then pinned me to the couch and shoved the sleeping pill down my throat. In the process of gagging on it, I accidentally swallowed it. When he released my arms, I began swinging at him, irate that he would rob me of the time I could have used to get closer to finding my dad. I woke this morning after allowing sleep to fuel my body with restored energy and a clear head, and apologized to Declan. But the moment he left to go attend a meeting with the architecture firm, I was back at it, dissecting the manifest. It's been 5 days since I received this list of passengers, and I'm no closer to finding a lead. What's even more discouraging is the fact that both Lachlan and Declan are starting to feel like they've exhausted all avenues, aside from traveling all over the States to knock on all 122 doors. And as much as Declan affirms that he will find him, I don't doubt that he would actually go to those lengths to do so. While Declan is in the other room cooking, I take my time getting ready. As I'm applying a little gloss to my lips, I hear the buzzing of my cell phone. It catches me off guard, since no one aside from Declan and Lachlan has the number. When I walk into the bedroom, I spot the phone on top of the dresser and pick it up. "Unknown" reads across the screen. "Hello?" I question curiously when I answer the call. "Hey, Kitty." His voice stuns me for a split second. "Matt? You miss me?" God, he's so skeevy. "How did you get this number?" I bite on a quiet voice as I walk into the bathroom and close the door so Declan can't hear. "Everyone is traceable. Even you, my dear." "What do you want?" I snap irritably. "That's no way to greet an old friend." "Cut the shit, Matt." "Fine. I need your help." "Forget it." "Do I need to remind you of your place in this equation? You owe me." He's right. I very well could be sitting in prison if he hadn't covered up Pike's murder for me, so I swallow back my hatred for his slimy ways. "What do you need?" "Well, it seems I'm in a bit of a bad situation with a loan shark." "What the hell are you doing business with a loan shark for?" "Pike's murder being the face of my business wasn't a good look, Kitty. No one wanted to be associated with me with the threat of cops watching. I needed money." "What happened to it?" "It's gone. I gambled it away in hopes of increasing my profits." "You're an idiot, you know that?" "The idiot who saved you from a life behind bars," he reminds with growing pique, and then drops the bomb. "They're gonna kill me." He pauses. "I can't buy any more time from them." I brace my hand on the edge of the sink and drop my head. I could bail him out, sure, but he'll never leave me alone. The threat of this guy will continue to hang over my head, and how do I have a shot in hell of moving forward in this life if my past is forever following me? Matt is nothing but corrosive. He always has been. Unwilling to allow him the opportunity to one day pull me down with him, or to risk him turning me into the cops for all the crimes I've hidden under my belt, I take back the control. "You want me to bankroll you?" "I need you to wire the money. My time is up." Panic seeps through his words the more he speaks. "Pretty soon there's going to be a bounty on my head." "If I do this, will you leave me alone?" "Yes." I take a moment to let him sweat a little, enjoying the upper hand and listening to him squirm for my help. "I don't believe you." "Elizabeth, what the fuck? Come on." "Don't call me again." "You fucking cunt." "Let me tell you who the cunt is," I seethe through my teeth. injecting each word with the poison of my rusted heart. You don't get to fuck with me anymore. I'm not a toy you get to play with. So this cunt is done with you, you little shit. Let them kill you. It'll do me the favor of dispelling you from my life. Before I give him an opportunity to respond, I disconnect the call and shut my phone off. With both of my hands clutching the countertop, I look at myself in the mirror and greet the monster that stares back at me, but no sooner say goodbye. I take in a few deep breaths and rein in the beast I've been trying to tame. For Declan. For us. Minutes pass, and my heart settles into a healthy rhythm. I apply a little more gloss before taking the phone and shoving it down in my purse that's in the closet. I turn to the mirror and give myself a look over, paranoid that Declan will see right through me. Walking out of the bedroom, I watch Declan for a few seconds. He's barking at someone on his phone while pots are steaming and boiling. He surprised me with the announcement earlier today that Davina, his childhood friend, is joining us for dinner. I'm not exactly happy about it, but refuse to let Declan notice my displeasure. He says that he wants me to give her a chance, that it's time I stop secluding myself from people and put myself out there to make friends. The thought doesn't sit well with me, though. I've never had friends. The women I socialized with back in Chicago were merely a charade I put on to appease Bennett and play my part in the whole con. Those women weren't my friends, though. The only two people I've ever truly welcomed into my life are Pike and Declan. I never saw the point in having friends. I still don't. But Davina is part of Declan's life, and it's important to him that I get to know her. So with my fake smile, I'll do my best to stifle any jealousy that might arise, to placate him. Is someone in trouble? I ask when I walk into the room after Declan ends his call, shaking off the residue of Matt's phone call. I think I'm going to have to make a trip back to Chicago to deal with some business concerning Lotus. Is everything okay? Yes, everything is fine. Forbes is going to be doing a feature on me for an upcoming issue, and they want to get photos of me at the Lotus property. You're kidding, Declan. That's amazing, I exclaim. Congratulations. He laughs at my reaction, but I can't help myself. Declan spent his life trying to measure up to his father's success, so to have a feature in Forbes is incredible validation. I take his face in my hands and look up at him with a huge smile. I am so proud of you. You are? He flirts, hoisting me onto the counter. Yes, and you should be more excited. I am excited. His voice is low and even, teasing me. I'm serious. This is amazing. You're amazing. He takes my hands from his face, pins them down on the countertop beneath his, and moves in to kiss my neck. The whiskers of his freshly trimmed stubble tickle me, and I tilt my head to close my neck off to him. Declan disapproves with a groan and forces my neck open with his head. He continues to kiss and nip, and every now and then sinks his teeth into the sensitive skin. I drop my head back with a pleasurable moan and widen my legs to invite him in closer, but before he presses against me, his phone rings. Ignore it, I pant, needing more of him. I can't. Davina is here. He steps away from me and takes the call. Sliding off the counter, I clench my thighs together to help relieve the pulsing ache of arousal that's built up inside of me thanks to Declan. You're a tease, I say with a nudge to his ribs when I walk past him. I'm going to get you back for that. Is that a threat? No, it's a guarantee. Soon there's a knock on the door, and when Declan opens it to let her in, the raven-haired friend greets him with a much too affectionate hug. They exchange pleasantries before Declan holds his hand out to me, saying to Davina, You remember Elizabeth? It's so good to see you again. Her smile is too wide as she hands me a bottle of wine. I figured you could use this since you're living with the most uptight man I know. That's nice, Declan says in mock umbrage as he heads back into the kitchen, leaving me alone with her in the living room. Thank you, I tell her, shoving my insecurities away for fictitious assurance. It's extremely thoughtful. I used to wine and dine the upper crust of Chicago for the satisfaction of Bennett, so Davina should be as easy as selling age-defying pigeon-shit facials to haute monde housewives. "Please, have a seat. Should I pour you a glass?" I ask, holding up the bottle. "I never turn down wine." She's much too perky and much too happy, or maybe it's just me being much too judgy. Either way, I grit my teeth as I walk to the kitchen and open the bottle of Sangiovese. "Declan," she says as she walks over and takes a seat at the island bar, "how long do we have to wait for your new property?"
"Years. We're building from the ground up," he tells her. "I was in meetings all day today going over budgets and schedules. We haven't even started on the design yet."
"How long do you plan on staying in London?"
"Until completion. Same as the Chicago property. So 3, maybe 4 years.
I hand her the glass of wine and she holds it up. "Well, cheers to new neighbors." And then she takes a sip. "So, Elizabeth, I know you can't be from around here with that accent of yours." "No, I'm from the States. Illinois," I tell her.
"Where Declan was? Chicago?"
"Yes." "So indulge me. Tell me how you two met." As soon as the question is out of her mouth, I feel the tingling in my palms, but I don't stress for more than a second when Declan begins to answer.
"She was at the grand opening of Lotus," he says, plating the food. "I spotted her immediately in this long navy dress. It didn't take me long to introduce myself. And lucky for me, she needed a place to throw an event, and I offered her the space at the hotel."
He picks up 2 of the plates, adding,
"The rest is history."
I pick up the 3rd plate and follow him into the dining room. We all sit to eat, and I listen while the 2 of them share a few funny stories from their childhood with me. I smile and laugh at all the right places in conversation as I tame the covetousness I feel that she's had more time and shares more memories with Declan than I do. She has a deep-rooted past with him, knows his annoying habits I haven't caught on to yet, and can practically finish his sentences for him. "Elizabeth," she addresses, exchanging her attention from Declan to me, "what is it that you do?" I swallow the sip of wine I just took, then clarify, "That I do?"
"Do you work?"
"Oh, no, not at the moment. Not ever, unless helping my brother weigh out and bag the drugs he and Matt used to sell on the streets counts as a job." I feel like such a fraud sitting here with her, as if this is my standard of living. "That's always nice. Have you been to London before?" "No, this is the first time I've been out of the States, believe it or not." "I have a lot to show you then," she says excitedly. "Have you done any exploring yet?" "Not if you consider walking across the street to Harrods," I joke. "Declan," she scolds, "why are you keeping this woman locked up? Take her out."
"Damn, why are you jumping my case?"
he says, charading indignation the way Pike and I often would with each other, the way most brothers and sisters probably do.
"We've been busy trying to settle in."
Turning back to me, she continues, "Well, you must let me show you around one day next week. I have a few client meetings, but other than that, I'm free." "Client meetings?" "Oh, excuse my bad manners. I'm an interior decorator. I'm working on 3 homes at the moment. 2 I'm finishing, so my workload will be lightening up soon." "That sounds like a fun job."
"Anything that involves shopping on another person's dime is fun," she laughs.
When we finish dinner, I stand and collect the plates, taking them to the kitchen so she and Declan can continue to talk. When I put the kettle on the stove to boil water for tea and coffee, I see Davina's phone on the bar where she was sitting earlier light up and vibrate with an incoming call. While I wait for the water to heat, I pick up her phone and take it over to her. "I think someone just tried calling you," I say when I hand it to her. "Oh, thank you." She takes the phone and looks to see who called, mumbling, "Ball bags." "What's wrong?" Declan asks as I sit back down. "It's William."
"I didn't think you two spoke anymore."
"We don't, but apparently I have a piece of jewelry that belonged to his mother that he's demanding." I've told him there's none in the house that belongs to him and to check his safe deposit box, but he claims it isn't in there. He keeps hounding me about it.
Tell him to let the attorneys handle it.
I did, but the cheap bastard refuses, she tells Declan before turning to me to clarify. Ex-husband. Oh. We divorced for religious reasons. He thought he was God and I didn't. Out of all her jokes she's made, this is the first where I can't help my laughter. Have you been married before? She asks, and my laughter wanes. I bite my lip and turn to Declan when I nearly blurt out yes without thinking. She's caught me off guard, and when Declan sees, he speaks for me.
No, she's never been married.
Davina looks between Declan and me with a curious expression upon her face, most likely wondering why her question choked me up, and why Declan would butt in to answer for me. She knows something is off, and I thank God for the kettle on the stove as it begins to whistle loudly. Excuse me, I say, getting up and rushing off to the kitchen. I take in a deep breath, sick and tired of all the questions. I've lived so many years pretending to be Nina that she feels like a part of me, and when asked questions, I forget that I'm just Elizabeth and I can't be crossing the two lives.
Are you okay?
Declan asks in a quiet voice when he joins me in the kitchen. She knows we're lying. Did you see the look on her face?
She doesn't. It's fine, he says. Stop worrying.
Here, I hand him the French press. Take this to the table, please. He does, and I follow with my tea. The evening winds down as we finish our drinks, and when Davina announces she must be going, I pacify her with a few empty pleasantries before thanking her for coming over, and she reminds me to give her a call. We'll go shopping or meet up for a nice lunch, she says, and I respond by lying, That sounds really nice. You can get my number from Declan. We say our goodbyes, and when she's out the door, Declan says,
That wasn't so bad, was it?
No, I fib. She's very lovely. He eyes me suspiciously. What? I question.
You're not still jealous, are you?
No, I'm not still jealous, I fib again. You're awfully full of yourself.
I like it when you're jealous.
He reaches for me, but I dodge his touch.
Get your ass back here.
You wish, McKinnon. You want to touch me?
Always.
Payback's a bitch, I taunt. You shouldn't have teased me so much earlier.
You're sadly mistaken if you think you call the shots around here.
He moves toward me again, but with each step forward, I take one step back, keeping the distance between us. He wears a smile almost as big as mine, and I try to contain my laughter. I love this side of us together, a side we've yet to explore with one another. It's young and free-spirited, and a rare look inside Declan's boyish charm. There's a joyful glint in his eyes that makes me want to run to him. But where's the fun in that? Let him catch me. Chapter 14.
I have the plane scheduled to leave tomorrow afternoon,
Declan tells me when he walks into the living room.
What are you doing?
I lift my pencil from the paper and look at the jumbled letters, realizing how crazy it must look to him. I have to keep trying.
I'm not accusing, darling. I'm just curious what all those letters mean.
I don't know, I admit with a shrug of my shoulders. I guess I wanted to see if there was something to the names, that maybe if I took the letters and rearranged them, I would be... I let my words fade when I'm aware of how nutty I sound. I can't give up.
I would never ask you to give up, but...
Let me exhaust this avenue before you tell me I'm wasting my time.
Okay.
Stepping back from the topic, he continues.
So tomorrow afternoon.
I'll be ready. I don't have much to pack, so it shouldn't take me long.
I was thinking maybe you could get out of here for a while. Go shopping. You have hardly any clothes.
You mean spend your money?
Our money,
he disputes.
But if you feel awkward spending it, let Davina spend it. It wouldn't be the first time.
What does that mean?
She once stole my piggy bank to buy herself a rickety pair of roller skates.
I laugh at his farcical outrage. So, she robbed you?
Pretty much, that unforgivable twit. I'd been saving that money for a long time.
My smile dissolves as envy creeps in.
What's wrong?
I take a moment, not sure of what to say when I finally speak. You really had a happy childhood, didn't you? His face levels out in emotion when he sees the harbored sadness in my eyes. He doesn't answer me right away until I push him to.
Yes, I was a happy kid.
There's resentment that festers within me, but not for Declan. It's for all the people who betrayed me and my dad and Pike. I don't hate Declan because he had a good life, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't jealous, because I am, because it isn't fair. You have all these wonderful stories to share with me, and I have none to share with you.
Come on, you must have some good memories with your brother.
Honestly, I start, and then pause to grip tightly to the sting of tears that threaten. It hurts too much to talk about.
It's only been a few months since you lost him. Give it time.
I think of the words he chose, lost him, as if Pike were a set of keys I misplaced. My gut sinks when I think of the ugly reality. I didn't lose him. I killed him. I doubt that any amount of time will fade away the agony that torments me because of what I did.
Hey, he says quietly. This is why you should get out of the house. You need a break from everything. Fresh air and a little distraction will do you well.
Are you going to let me go by myself?
No.
I didn't think so. I let out a faint laugh. I'll call Lachlan.
Why don't you call Davina?
I set my pencil and notepad down on the coffee table and exhale heavily. Can I just call Lachlan?
Why are you so afraid to make friends?
First off, I'm not afraid, and second, why do I need friends when I have you? I'm not one of those girls who has this incessant need to gossip and chit-chat about things I find no importance in, I explain with a shard of annoyance. Women are vicious and catty. Everyone knows that.
If that were true, what does that say about you?
I squint my eyes at him, but he just smirks. I'm vicious, but I'm not catty. He shakes his head at me.
Do me a favor. Humor me.
Why should I?
Because she's practically the only family I have, he tells me. She's a good person, a tad on the bubbly side, but she means well and is trustworthy. I also think it would be good for you to start venturing out. Make a friend.
I've never had friends.
What about when you were a child and in school?
All the girls were too busy making fun of me. I was teased every day. I shrug my shoulders as I remember the shame and embarrassment. I wouldn't even know how to be a friend to someone. He takes my hands in his, saying,
Just be yourself.
Well, there's an idea. My voice edges on soreness. Too bad I don't have a clue who I am.
You may not see it, but I can. I see parts of you that are brand new, and nothing like the girl I met in Chicago. Your laughter, the youthful playfulness that comes out every once in a while, those belong to you, Elizabeth.
He's sure of his words.
Nina would have never run around this apartment, laughing and making me chase her the way you did the other night. As more time passes, more of who you are will unfold. But if you need to know who you are because you can't find it within you, then come to me, and I'll tell you.
I nod, unable to speak around thick emotion. Staring into his eyes, I'm bewildered by the love he has for me. His patience and reassurance have started to form a solid ground for me. I trust him, but I still suppress so many insecurities, some of which I've yet to share with him. His intentions are good, though. He only wants me to thrive and be happy. He'd never intentionally put me in a harmful or unsafe situation.
So will you give her a call?
For him, I'll try it his way. He gives me her number, and when I call, she's thrilled at the mention of shopping and agrees to swing by to pick me up. After I hang up with Davina, I walk into the office where Declan is. I wanted to talk to you about something.
Did you get a hold of her?
Yes, she's on her way to pick me up.
What do you want to talk about?
he asks as he gets up from his desk and motions me over to join him on the leather couch that sits in the corner of the room next to the large windows. The penthouse in Chicago. I want to sell it, I tell him. I'll never live there again. I wish I could erase all of its memories, but I can't, so let's just get rid of it.
I'll take care of it. All of it,
he assures without any question. I need to go back, though. There are a few things I need that were gifts from Pike.
Okay. I'll put a call into Sotheby's to see what needs to be done to get it on the market, he says, taking all the pressure of having to deal with this off my back. We can go straight there when we land to get it over with, so it won't be weighing on you.
Are you sure? I mean, you don't have to come with me.
That place is filled with awful memories for me as well. Memories I too wish I could erase, but I'm not having you go there alone to face it all by yourself.
I sling my arms around him, so thankful because he's right. I know how painful it's going to be to walk through those doors again. It's the tainted sanctuary of ghosts from the past few years. It's Bennett. It's purple roses. It's all the disgusting moments I gave that piece of shit my body. It's where I saw the monster in my brother's eyes for the first time. It's where my baby died. And it's where Declan's spirit forever changed when he murdered Bennett in cold-blooded rage. It's the coffin that holds so many skeletons. I'd burn it to ashes if I could.
It's one chapter of our past we can close. Just look at it that way.
Once again, he is doing what he can to eliminate the pain we both feel about that place. The place he dreaded to send me back to after our time together, thinking Bennett was violently beating me. So many lies, so much bloodshed. But without it, I never would have found Declan. So I'll bear its torture that singes my heart. The day is just warm enough to go without a coat. I tilt my head back, looking up to the brilliant blue sky. The sun's rays heat my face while I breathe the crisp air deep into my lungs, and I swear I feel its particles cleansing me. Beautiful day, isn't it? Davina asks as we stand in the middle of Piccadilly Circus. Declan was right. I needed out of the confines of One Hyde Place. I needed sunshine and fresh air. I needed to feel this breeze whipping through my hair, to see that even though life seems to pause, it doesn't ever truly stop. The streets are a cascade of people walking in every direction. Davina takes a phone call, and I walk up the steps of the Shaftesbury Fountain. A swell of freedom erupts when I reach the top step. I've seen grand landmarks in the States, but only with Bennett or because of him. Although he gave me all the freedom I wanted, I wasn't truly free. I was living in his life as his wife. But here I stand, no longer having to pretend, no longer a prisoner to my own game. And even though Declan keeps me safely under his thumb, I've never felt more boundless. So much so that if I lifted my arms right now, I bet I could fly.
It'll only get better from this point.
I scan the throngs of people, searching, and then I spot him. I gasp. He isn't 32 years old. He's the 12-year-old boy from our childhood. He stands beneath the colorful lights of the billboards, staring at me. Acutely aware of Davina's presence at the bottom of the fountain, I slip on my sunglasses to shield my heart's ache that puddles in my eyes. Davina's buried in her phone at the moment. I want to run to him, but everyone would think I was crazy. My heart jumps to life. I'm giving him this, something we were both deprived of as kids, and because I've kept him alive, I can now give him all the joys that come my way. We can share them together. He looks up at the bright lights, his boyish eyes filled with wonderment, and I smile. Turning to look at me, elation plastered on his face, he waves to me from a distance. In return, I give the little boy who did everything he could to save me from the devil in the basement a subtle wave back. Sorry about that, Davina says, drawing my attention away from my brother as she shoves her phone down into her purse. I smile, hiding my grief behind the dark lenses. You ready? Yes, I respond, walking down the steps and taking one last look over to Pike, but he's gone. I tell myself he'll come back, because he always does. Davina and I walk together to Bond Street, where she assures me there is amazing shopping, and she's spot on. It's all the designers that still hang in my closet back at the Legacy. Familiar friends greet me as I pass them: Chanel, Jimmy Choo, Hermes. They're all here, reminding me of how I used them to deceive others. "Here we are," she says, opening the door to Fenwick. I walk inside the high-end luxury department store that Davina insists has a nice selection of less expensive designers as well. I told her I didn't need anything fancy, just your typical everyday wear. I remove my sunglasses and begin to scan the racks and pull items I'm in need of. Davina wanders off to shop a few racks over. I fill my arms with jeans, slacks, casual tops, and soft cashmere sweaters before a sales associate takes them to start a fitting room for me. We keep the chatter among us light as we try on clothes. She talks to me about one client of hers that's a widow of an aristocrat, who she swears is draining the family inheritance on a remodel. "Her children are going to be bloody mad when they find out she's passed all the money away," she says. "How much money do you suspect?" I ask, tossing another top onto the yes pile. "Around £250,000, she exclaims. "The old woman has lost her mind." Once we're dressed, we make our purchases and head to the second floor where Davina was able to get reservations on short notice at Bond and Brooke. The restaurant is glamorous, gleaming in stark whites and silvers. We're seated at a table next to the windows that look down on the street filled with people who are anxious to spend money. "I could only get us in for the afternoon tea seating. I hope that's okay with you." "Of course." Our waiter promptly sets our table with hot tea and Pommery rosé champagne, along with small bites, consisting of crab tartlets, butter pear beignets, and celery cucumber sorbet. "This looks amazing," I say. "Thank you for doing this." "Of course. I'm just happy to see Declan sharing his life with someone. I was starting to worry he'd forever be alone." She gives a whisper of a laugh, but I know she means the words she speaks. "It must have been love at first sight, then." "Why do you say that?" "He said the two of you met at the opening of Lotus. That was the beginning of December, wasn't it?" "Yes," I answer, and then take a sip of tea. "It's April, and he's already moved you in." "I guess you're right." I'm a bit surprised, but hide it. It feels like so much more time has passed since the night I met him. "I can't believe it's only been 4 months." "And I can't believe he's kept you a secret from me," she quips with a smile before biting into one of the tartlets. "Well, I know you're not working here in London, but what was it that you did when you lived abroad?" Declan told me to just answer the questions as Elizabeth, but I can't do that. I dab my mouth with my napkin, stalling time, but it moves forward regardless. "I did a little bit of—" I think back to how I met Bennett and continue. "I worked in catering for a short period." I'm not sure if she picks up on my hesitation, but she goes on, saying, "That's so funny. I worked in that realm after university. I was a bartender for a catering company in Edinburgh." "Really?" "My parents aren't like most. They paid my way through my studies, but once I graduated, they cut the credit cards, and I was on my own. It took me a while to find work, so in the meantime I bartended," she explains. "Did you go to school with Declan?" "No, Declan was an impeccable student." "Me, not so much. I attended the University of Dundee." "Where's that?" "Just north of St. Andrews, where Declan went to school." "Less than an hour's drive, actually," she tells me. "And what about you? Where did you go to university?" "Where did I go?" I can't possibly tell her the truth, so I cover my ass and lie. "Kansas State." It's the university I told Declan Nina attended, but I immediately kick myself for lying when Declan made it clear not to, and when I continue, I stumble over my words, knowing I need to write the lie. "Well, I mean, fuck. Is everything okay?" She sees right through me. When she stands, I wonder if somehow she knows I'm a fake. She comes to sit right next to me. "Let me apologize," she starts, and I don't respond. I just let her continue. "I don't mean to pry. I can see I've made you uncomfortable." "No," I say, attempting to cover myself. "I'm just a little on the private side." "I can understand that. It's just, well, after Lillian's death, Declan changed a lot. He isolated himself from nearly all the family. The two of us managed to keep close, though, and we've remained that way," she reveals. "I love him dearly, and when I spoke to him after our dinner the other night, he told me that you were an extension of him, so I can't help but love you as well because of that." Her words are heartfelt and take me aback. I can see no other motivations on her part aside from genuinely wanting to get to know me. Declan was right when he told me she was a good person, because that's the very impression she's giving me right now. "I never went to college," I admit to her, needing to erase the lie. "I'm sorry I lied. I guess I was just embarrassed. Airing my truths is not what I'm used to. I'm a liar, a manipulator, an imposter. Or I was, always dodging the law in one way or another. But today, right now, I'm going to choose to take a step forward as Elizabeth. If Davina believes, as Declan does, that I'm an extension of him, she won't judge. I was a foster kid. I didn't come from money, so college was never an option for me." She smiles and places her hand on top of mine in a gesture that is both comforting and foreign. "Thank you for trusting me with that." I nod, and after she gives my hand a light squeeze, she moves back to her seat across from me. She takes a sip of her champagne, smiles, and then adds in jest, "We should order more champagne. Declan's treat." She winks and pulls out one of his credit cards and laughs. "He slipped it to me when I picked you up in case you refused to use the other card he gave you." I shake my head. "That wretch!" "Well, that wretch is going to pick up our tab." Conversation is less stressful now that the brick of worry and secrecy has been lifted off my shoulders. She asks about our trip back to the States, and I tell her all about Chicago. I'm not about to tell her my whole life story by any means, but for now, I'm enjoying the light conversation with someone other than Declan or Lachlan. Those two know so much of my darkness, but with Davina, I feel a little de novo, and even a little normal. Chapter 15. I stuff the manifest along with my notepad and contact list into a manila envelope and zip it up in my suitcase. Last night was another long night of letter scrambling. I know Declan thinks it's nonsense, and maybe it is, but I refuse to sit idle and wait. I'll always find a way to keep moving, because I have to, because I need to find him. "Do you know where your duffel bag is? I need it for my workout clothes and trainers," Declan asks. "It's on the top shelf on my side of the closet." I sit on the bed and wait for him to finish packing. He walks out of the closet with the bag, and I admire him in his fitted button-down that's tucked nicely into his charcoal slacks, always so polished and refined, even when he's dressed down in jeans and a cotton shirt. "You want to wipe the drool off your chin and help me?" he heckles when he peers up at me and catches me gawking. "You're so full of yourself," I shoot back when I hop off the bed to go grab his shoes. When I return and set the shoes on the bed beside the bag, I watch him pull out a picture frame. He holds it with both of his hands, and I remember it being the picture I found of him in Isla's bedroom at the Water Lily. "I forgot this was in here," he says. "You've seen it before?" "When you were missing. I went through all of your belongings, and I came across this," he tells me. His eyes remain on the photo of himself as a little boy, and then he looks to me, asking, "Where did you get this?" "At the bed and breakfast where I was staying. I found it in the owner's bedroom." I pause for a moment, and when he doesn't speak, I ask, "It's you, isn't it? I mean, your name's written on the back." "Yes, it's me." I look at him in confusion, and he reflects it back to me. "Do you know her, Isla?" "No. Did you ask her about this when you found it?" "She wasn't there. I found it when you were in London, and I had gone back to pack up the rest of my things. It was the day Richard kidnapped me." "This photo was taken at my parents' home. This was the pond that was on the property."
It would fill with lotus blooms, and my mom would spend hours out there.
Maybe she was friends with your mother, I suggest.
She never said anything. I saw her each time I went over there to visit you. If she knew me, why wouldn't she say something?
Do you want to call her? He hands the picture over to me, saying,
We don't have time. We need to get to the plane. I'll deal with it when we get back.
Are you sure? You seemed bothered by this.
I'm not bothered,
he states, and then throws his clothes and shoes into the bag before zipping it up.
You're probably right. She must have been friends with my mom.
He picks up the bag along with mine, and without another word he walks out of the room, leaving me alone. Finding that photo has stirred up something inside him. His eyes exposed too much to me, more than he intended. Perhaps it was just the sheer memory of his mom, so I'll respect his request to avoid it until after our trip. We secure the apartment before leaving to drive to Biggin Hill Airport, where the pilot is already waiting for us. Aside from him, we are the only others on the plane. How long have you had this thing? I ask as I settle into my seat that's next to the window.
This is more than just a thing. It's a G450 Gulfstream jet, he boasts,
and I chuckle at him with a shake of my head. I see I've offended your toy, I go on to pester. He takes the seat right next to me instead of across from me.
Buckle up, because this toy is about to take off,
he says with a sexy smirk, and then reaches over to fasten my seatbelt for me, yanking on the strap to tighten it. The plane is extravagant with its white leather seats and espresso wood finishes that add a masculine contrast. Double seats on the left and single seats on the right, with a beverage station in the back next to a decent-sized lavatory. There's a flat-screen television above the small eating table towards the front of the aircraft, next to the cockpit. Well, for what it's worth, I say as he fastens his seatbelt, I like your toy.
As long as my baby's happy.
The pilot looks over his shoulder from his seat in the cockpit, saying,
We've been cleared for takeoff, sir. Are you ready? We're ready, William. Would you like privacy for the flight? Yes.
I look to him, perplexed, with a grin, and question, You didn't want privacy last time?
That's because Lachlan was with us.
His flirtations spark the tinder inside me, but he simply winks and takes my hand in his, threading his fingers with mine as the aircraft begins to move.
Prepare for takeoff,
the pilot's voice announces over the speaker. I grip Declan's hand tighter when the plane speeds up.
You nervous?
I look out the window as we lift off and ascend into the sky.
Elizabeth.
I roll my head over to him and nod, my fingers fixed around his. He tucks a lock of hair behind my ear, and I close my eyes as I lean into his touch.
Talk to me.
I blink my eyes open. It feels weird going back. Everyone there knows me as Nina. I can't be anything but her in that city.
I know,
he says, voice drowning in compassion. Does that bother you? Because it bothers me.
It's part of who we are.
But does it bother you? I ask again. Shrugging his shoulders, he admits,
Somewhat. But we're in this together. I'll do what I can to make this trip short and uneventful.
My stomach is in knots, wishing one of my many endless wishes to extinguish memories that are unvanquishable. I want to break out of the cobwebs I've spun that now cling to me like sand to a pearl. I'm no pearl, though, more like the goop that embodies the pearl within the oyster. And I have to wonder if beneath my protective shell, if you dug deep enough through the slime, would there be a morsel of purity? I remember one of my conversations with Isla. She told me we're all threaded with holy fibers. Perhaps.
Come here,
Declan says after a span of time. He raises the armrest between us as I unfasten my seatbelt and then pulls me onto his lap. With my arms around his neck and his around my waist, I rest my head against his.
We're going to be fine,
he whispers deeply. I nod. His hand slips under my top and trails up my spine, sending a rush of tingles across my skin. With eyes open, we watch each other intently. My hands find their way into his hair, and I grip fistfuls of it as his hand moves to trail across my stomach.
"Tell me what you want,"
he speaks in a husky breath. He runs a hand over my breast and pulls the lace of my bra down underneath my top. You, raw and base, touch me as if I'm unbreakable. He pinches my nipple hard between his fingers. I yelp, and my body flinches at the sudden pain that shoots through the nerve endings that maze beneath my skin. Yes, I breathe. Black swallows green as lasciviousness fills the air around us, and he clamps down on my nipple again, twisting so hard I have to hold my breath as my fingers claw his shoulders.
"Like that?"
he asks, releasing me from his fingers. "Mm-hmm," I respond behind closed lips, as my breast throbs to ebb the pain he's inflicted. He smiles, but it's filled with imperious satisfaction.
"Good girl."
He slides me off his lap, stands me up, and then joins me. Slowly, he takes the hem of my top and pulls it over my head before removing my bra, my nipples hard from his assault. He removes the rest of my clothes until I'm standing there completely naked and exposed while he remains clothed in his slacks and button-down.
"Turn around, spread your legs, and bend over,"
he instructs, and I obey his word. I turn, part my feet wide, and bend over, gripping my hands onto the armrests to steady myself. He then takes one end of the seatbelt and knots it around my left wrist, and then does the same to my right with the other end of the seatbelt. He retreats back behind me, and I can feel his eyes on me, but he doesn't touch me. I close my eyes and wait, and after what feels like a few minutes, I hear him shift. Opening my eyes, I look between my legs to see he's on his knees, and then I close them again, startling when he finally touches me. His fingers dig into my hips, and I feel his hot breath on my pussy seconds before his warm tongue glides along my seam. And then he dips it between my folds and finds my clit. I whimper when he presses the pad of his tongue against it in a back-and-forth motion. My breathing picks up and my eyes pop open when my knees begin to buckle. There's so much pressure and so much friction, quickly driving me to an orgasm. He's unrelenting, and then abruptly pulls away, leaving my core needy and begging. He then strikes my ass cheek hard with his hand, creating a loud smack. I immediately feel the abused skin radiate in blazing heat, but before the tingles kick in, he brings his hand down in another ruthless blow. Ow! Cold air meets the pucker of my ass when he spreads me open. Sweat coats my neck, and my arms begin trembling. His mouth is back on my pussy, lapping his tongue, eating me out like a wild animal. He runs his mouth from my clit all the way back to my asshole. He ravishes me, tasting all of me, and the sensation throws me over, blurring my vision as I mule in pure ecstasy. He devours me entirely, front to back, back to front, touching me in ways I've never experienced before. He fucks both my openings with his tongue, and it takes all my strength to keep myself standing. Dragging his mouth to my ass cheek, he sinks his teeth into me, biting me like a barbarian before spanking me once again with a fierce hand.
"On your knees,"
he demands. When I lower myself to the floor, he grabs onto me and flips my body around to face him, twisting my arms painfully, one crossed over the other. I scream out, but the pain from the transition dissolves. My ass throbs beneath me as I sit on the battered flesh. He begins unbuttoning his shirt and stripping down. I admire his body as he stands naked in front of me. Taut muscles wrap around his broad shoulders and rope down his arms. His chest is defined in hard slabs that etch their way down to the deep V that leads to his thick cock. Aside from the bullet wound in his chest, his skin is smooth, but on him, the flaw is flawless. Every part of his body is transcendental. He lowers himself to his knees between my legs and lifts my hips to him, resting my bottom on top of his thighs as my feet are planted flat on either side of him. The head of his cock pushes against me, and he teases me when he drags it up and down between the lips of my pussy, wetting himself with my arousal.
Tell me who owns you, he says as he holds himself in his hand and tugs my opening with the tip of his cock.
You do.
I want more.
Then take it,
I breathe, my whole body screaming in hysteria for him, for all of him.
You have me entirely. I love you, so take it all because it's already yours.
Fucking Christ, I love you, he growls as he buries himself balls deep inside me. My tits bounce as he fucks me with powerful thrusts while he holds my hips up. Throbbing flesh and burning arms cease to exist as I allow myself to get lost in this man I've fallen so in love with. I writhe against him every time he enters me, yearning for more. He reaches up and squeezes my one breast roughly before releasing his hand and slapping it. The piercing infliction on such tender skin battles against rhapsodic pleasure, and I cry out in pure carnal heat when he slaps my breast again before leaning down to lick and suck the supple swell of my chest. The tether of the seatbelts cuts into my wrists as Declan dominates me, doing as he pleases with my body, because he can, because I give him that right. He slows his pace when he pulls back from kissing me, asking, "Do you trust me?"
I trust you. He then takes both of his hands and places them around my frail neck.
Do you trust me now?
I nod.
Give me the words.
I trust you.
Don't panic,
he says firmly, and when he does, a shudder of fear blazes through me. His eyes pin to mine, and I feel his fingers clamp down as his hands grow in strength, closing around my throat. He starts to pick up the pace, pumping his cock in and out of me. My hands fist into tight balls as his grip around my neck becomes more intense. The pressure builds and builds as his hands constrict around me. I gasp for air when he collapses my trachea. He's choking me. His arms strain even more, cutting off my airway completely as he stares into my tear-flooded, wide eyes. My body lurches as I frantically gurgle, desperate for air. I panic. Oh my God, I can't breathe.
This is trust,
he grunts as he fucks me wildly, pounding into me. He's brutal.
Don't be scared.
My vision blurs, and I yank ferociously against the seatbelt. My hands and feet begin to prickle, and the sensation creeps through my arms and legs, taking me hostage. Chills rack my body. There's no more air. Everything goes black. And then everything around me explodes in a blazing eruption of every force of nature imaginable when his hands let go of me. Bursts of shattering light impair my vision, blinding me from everything around me as my body contracts viciously, splintering every bone in my body. I spasm in a debilitating orgasm unlike anything that could possibly exist on Earth. I come violently hard, crying out in an inferno of wild passion. Pleasure rolls in tidal waves through every muscle, every tendon, every cell. It crashes down on me over and over and over, refusing to let go. I hear Declan moaning deeply in the far distance. I feel his body heat wrap around me. Warmth soaks into my skin, and it feels like medicine when it spreads through my bloodstream. It calms, bringing me back down. I focus on its comfort as my eyes begin to focus. My whole body goes limp, and when I can clearly see Declan, I'm consumed by an overwhelming need for closeness. Untie me, I cry out urgently. Now, Declan, untie me. My voice trembles and cracks, and he moves quickly to free me, and with each arm he releases, I wrap it tightly around him. He holds on to me as I straddle his lap, and bury my face into the side of his neck. Our bodies are clammy, and we cling to each other.
I've got you, darling,
he whispers again and again.
You're okay. I've got you.
And I know he does. I didn't think it was possible to grow more intimately with Declan, to be even closer to him. But what he just did, I swear to God, I felt him inside every molecule I'm made of. I've never felt more exposed, more vulnerable, more naked than I do right now in this very moment. He has me at my weakest. I finally lift my head and look at him, our bodies still connected, and kiss him, tasting every part of me on his tongue like the savage animal I am. "Don't ever leave me," I begin to weep. "Promise me you won't ever leave me."
"I'll never leave you," he affirms. "You're the color of my blood."
Chapter 16. By the time we landed and arrived at Lotus last night, I was completely depleted. As soon as we crawled into bed, I fell asleep. We took our time waking up and getting around this morning, but now that we're cleaned up and have had a bite to eat, we're on our way to the Legacy. Up until this moment, I've been okay, but as Declan drives the familiar streets of the city, I feel sick to my stomach. We pull into the parking garage and park the car next to Bennett's SUV. Declan steps out of the car, but I'm frozen as I stare at the vehicle Baldwin used to drive me around in.
"Let's get this over with,"
Declan says when he opens my door. He reaches over me and unclicks the seatbelt.
"Come on."
I take his hand and hold tightly to him as we make our way into the building and up to the top floor. When the elevator opens and we enter the penthouse, it all comes flooding back. Every smell, every conversation, every sexual encounter I experienced with the enemy. I look to Declan. He's grinding his teeth. His only memory of this place is when he broke in and shot Bennett, killing him instantly. "The bedroom is over here," I mutter, knocking him out of his trance. He roams around while I go into the closet. I climb up on a step stool to reach the box on the top shelf. When I pull it down, I rip off the tape and see a pile of clothes I used to hide what lies beneath. I dig down and grab the notebook Pike used to always sketch in. Page after page is filled with art created by his own hands. Some are of random strangers, some are visions from his dreams, but most are of me. I reach down and pull out a few other items I snuck in when I moved in here with Bennett. I had to have pieces of Pike with me always. I dump out the clothes and put all of Pike's possessions back into the box. I try not to think too much. Being in this space is hard enough. When I walk back out into the bedroom I shared with Bennett, Declan is standing in front of the large armoire. As I walk over to him, I see he's holding the framed picture of Bennett and me on our wedding day, and my heart sinks painfully into the deep well of sorrow. "It wasn't real," I say, keeping my voice soft because he looks like he's about to blow. "I hated that man. I still do." He doesn't speak. His knuckles are tense and white as his fingers grip the metal frame. I reach out slowly and touch his shoulder. "Please don't look at that."
"You look so happy,"
he says, his words dripping acid onto my heart. "I was happy because I was one step closer to destroying him. That's what's behind my smile," I tell him. "Not love."
"You let him touch you."
"Don't do this."
"He's touched every part of you."
"No." He sends the photo flying across the room and the frame crashes into a lamp, sending them both falling to the floor, shattering the light bulb. "Declan, please," I call out. "If you think I gave him what I give you, you're wrong."
"This is what I hate about you,"
he seethes as he glares his animosity at me. It's a painful reminder that he still harbors these feelings for me. He hides it well, but I can't pretend that a part of him doesn't still hate me.
"I look at the fucking bed and all I can see is your naked body fucking him."
"It wasn't real." He grabs my arms and slings me around, shoving me against the wall, and spits his venomous words at me.
"It was real. What you did was real, so stop lying to yourself."
He shields his pain in anger, and it tears me apart. I can take his temper, but I can't handle knowing how much he's hurting. That part cuts me deeply. Capillaries burst beneath my skin under his strenuous grip on my arms that will surely bruise. He jerks me forward and then pushes me back, letting go of me before turning around. His hand rakes angrily through his hair as he storms out of the room and slams the door behind him, leaving me alone in evil's lair. I don't go after him right away. I allow him time to cool off as I sit by the window and look down over Millennium Park.
"Are you okay?"
I look up to Pike, who stands next to me as he leans against the window, and I nod, because I'm scared if I talk, Declan might hear.
It's only natural for him to feel this way, you know.
I know, I faintly whisper.
Deep down, he's hurting. You have to help him carry the weight of that pain.
Pike leans down and kisses the top of my head.
Go talk to him.
I stand and give my brother a hug, thankful that he's always here with me. I love you, I murmur in his ear.
I love you too.
Picking up the box, I walk over to the door and open it gently. I step out of the room and see Declan sitting on the couch in the living room. His elbows are propped on his knees, and he's resting his forehead on his fisted hands, staring at the floor. I set the box down on the coffee table and sit next to it, facing him. My hands close around his fists, and he looks up at me with shame in his eyes, saying,
I'm sorry I lost it on you.
No, I refuse his apology with a shake of my head. You have every right to get your anger out. I'm the one who owes all the apologies, not you.
I thought those feelings were fading because we've grown so much closer these past couple weeks, but seeing that photo...
You could hate me forever, and it would be okay. I'll love you regardless. He unclenches his hands and places them along my jaw, while I still hold on to his wrists. I can see his emotions tormenting him when he confesses,
I don't want to hate you.
It's okay. I'm inherently yours. I jump when the phone rings loudly, putting an end to our conversation. I rush over to answer it and tell Manuel to send up the agent from Sotheby's. When I hang up, Declan walks to me and wraps himself around me. I hug him and listen to his heart, hoping I've reassured him enough to take the guilt of his feelings away from him. By the time the knock on the door comes, we're both calm and in a better place since the outburst.
Good morning,
the agent greets, shaking both mine and Declan's hands.
I'm Ray. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming on such short notice, Declan says.
We're just pressed for time and need to get the ball rolling on this property.
Of course. If you don't mind, can I take a look around?
Please.
Declan waits in the living room while I show Ray around the penthouse. As he takes notes and asks a few questions here and there, we then regroup as we sit down at the dining table.
How many units was this originally?
Ray asks. It was 4 units before it was renovated into 1. After a few more questions, he pulls the amenities sheet out and begins punching numbers on his calculator.
First, can I ask what number you had in mind?
I didn't have one in mind. I don't even know what my husband bought it for, I respond, nearly wincing at the word husband, and it must be gnawing at Declan as well.
When I combine everything together, Ray begins, I think a good starting point is looking close to $10.9 million for this unit.
I don't care what this place sells for. I just want to dump it. We won't be keeping the money anyway. Sounds good. When can we have it listed?
That honestly depends on you. As soon as you're ready, I can send the photographer over to take pictures. Once that's taken care of, we can have this property live on our site within 24 hours.
Great.
We need to make a few arrangements first, Declan adds. Of course. Take care of what you need and call me when you're ready to move forward.
We stand, shake hands, and I walk Ray to the door, thanking him for his time. What arrangements? I question after I close the door.
We need to hire a packing service to clear everything out of here.
What are we going to do with all of it?
What about his parents? Can you give them a call and let them know you're selling the apartment, and see if they'd like us to have everything moved to a storage unit?
I suppose, I respond, dread sinking in.
It has to be done.
I know, I sigh. What about you?
What do you mean?
They're going to insist on seeing me. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm the daughter-in-law, and God only knows what they're thinking about me after I hightailed it out of the country immediately after Bennett's funeral. If I meet them, you can't come with me.
You're not going to see them.
His edict isn't one I want to argue with.
Go ahead and call them.
I go to the kitchen and power up Bennett's old phone so I can get his mother's number. Before making the call, I take a deep breath.
Put it on speakerphone,
Declan instructs. After a few rings, the call's connected. Hello? Carol, it's me, Nina. Nina, she exclaims. My goodness, we've all been so worried about you. Are you okay, dear? Yes, I'm fine. Where on earth have you been? Just traveling, I tell her. I'm sorry I ran off so quickly without saying anything. I just had to get away. Where are you now? Back in Chicago, actually, but only for a short while. Can I come see you? I look to Declan, and he's shaking his head. I don't think that's a good idea, Carol. Nina, you're still a part of our family, she says, her voice teetering on tears. I know, but it's just easier this way. But listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. Yes, what is it? I'm putting the penthouse on the market. You're selling it? The quiver of her voice turns to shock. It's too much, and I'm not even here to use the space anyways. I can't live here anymore. It's too painful. Everything here reminds me of him, I tell her, feigning my sadness as a widow. I understand. It's just hard to see something of his go. I've packed a few things to remember him by, I lie. But everything else, the furniture, his clothes, I was wondering if you could help me out. Whatever you need, she says. How can I help? Would it be okay if I had everything boxed up and sent to a storage unit? Are you sure you don't want any of it? I'm sure. I can't look at any of it anymore. It hurts too much, I say with a voice overflowing in sadness. I have to force myself to move on. Move on? She weeps. I'm sorry, but I have to. For me. Please let me come see you, dear. Let me say goodbye to you properly and not over the phone. I'm sorry, Carol, I just can't. I'll text you with the details of the storage unit once I can get everything arranged, I say quickly, and then hang up before anything else can be said. I'm scared to look at Declan, scared to see his reaction to all my deceit. I keep my eyes down when I walk out of the kitchen and into the living room. I pick up my box and head over to the door where he meets me. Look at me, he says, and when I do, I respond thickly. I hate all of them. I know you do, but you can breathe now. It's over with, and you don't ever have to be a part of those people again. I'm ready to go, I tell him as he takes the box from my arms and we leave, locking the door on all the haunting memories that remain in that apartment. Chapter 17. I once saw a poster that read, "Art is an attempt to bring order out of chaos." I don't remember where I saw it, but for some reason I've always remembered it. Maybe that's why my brother turned to sketching. Our lives were beyond chaotic. He didn't start drawing until he was in his early 20s. We used to ride the buses. It wasn't because we needed to go somewhere. We rode them to feel like we were going somewhere. I'd sit next to him and watch as he sketched random passengers. He was talented. We both knew his talents would never get us out of the slums, but he didn't do it because he had expectations. He did it to escape. While Declan is with the columnist from Forbes, I flip through Pike's sketch pad. I ghost my fingers over his lines, over his shadows, over every inch of paper that his hand would have touched. He drew me more beautiful than what reflects in the mirror. Every picture is amazing, and I wish people could have seen him the way I did. He was so much more than a drug dealer covered in tattoos that parents would shield their children from when they'd see him walking down the sidewalk. He was a savior, my savior. The sound of the door unlocking catches my attention, and I'm happy to see Declan. "Sorry that took so long," he announces when he walks in and shrugs off his suit jacket. He loosens his tie that's tucked into the navy vest of the tailored three-piece suit he wore for the photos. Walking over to me, he leans over the couch I'm curled up on and kisses me. "What's that?" "Pike's sketch pad." He takes a seat next to me, asking, "May I?" as he holds his hand out. I pass him the pad and watch as he looks through a couple of drawings. "These aren't bad," he notes before turning to the next page that happens to be a sketch of me sleeping on a ratty couch we found at the Goodwill. He stops and scans the image for a while before saying, "He loved you,
didn't he?
When I don't respond, he looks at me and adds,
He's drawn every detail perfectly, down to the faint scar you have right under your left eyebrow.
He then traces the scar on my skin with his finger.
How did you get it?
I was thrown down a flight of stairs and busted my face up.
Your foster dad?
He was mad at me for... I stop as shame builds.
For what?
He presses, and when I still don't respond, he says,
I don't want you to hold anything back from me.
I've already told him all the filth from my past, so I don't know why this wave of embarrassment has come over me, but I push through it and answer him. I'd been tied up and locked in the closet for a few days. I had been sick earlier that day, and wound up not only defecating on myself, but also throwing up. When he let me out, he was furious. He started kicking me in my ribs, and then threw me down the basement stairs. He tosses the sketch pad onto the coffee table and pulls me into his arms quickly. I don't cry, but that doesn't mean the memories don't inflict pain. Declan coddles me like one would a child, and I let him, because it feels good to be nurtured by him. His embrace is hard under his flexed muscles, but I find a way to melt into him anyway. I know he's upset with what I just told him because I can feel the tension in his body. So I keep quiet to allow him to calm himself down, and he eventually does. I never got to see where Pike was buried, I say after a good amount of time has passed.
Why not?
I was scared. I was afraid to link myself to him and get busted for my con, I explain. When Bennett and Pike died, and when I thought you were dead too, I laid low. But since we've been back, I can't stop thinking about where he is.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Yes. He didn't deserve to die like he did, and to be left all alone, I tell him through the heavy knot of sadness in my throat. Do you think you can find out where he was buried? He reaches into his vest to pull out his cell, and without wasting a minute, asks,
Where did this happen?
He was living in Justice. It's the same county as here.
What's his full name?
Pike Donnelly, I tell him. He looks up the number to Cook County and is redirected to the coroner's office. He stands to walk over to grab a piece of paper and a pen as I hear him ask, Who claimed the body? He continues to take notes and ask questions as my gut twists and tangles while I listen to one side of this conversation. Patience escapes me, and I walk over to where he's standing so I can read the notes he's taken. Matt's name is written on the paper. Declan ends the call and tucks his phone away. Why did you write down Matt's name?
He's the one that claimed the body. Who is he?
Just one of Pike's friends.
You know him?
Yeah, he was Pike's buddy since we were kids, I tell him while still concealing the fact that it wasn't too long ago he was calling me to bail him out of debt.
Well, since no next of kin claimed the body within the allotted time, Matt was able to do so before cremation. He paid the state fee for an indigent burial.
What? I blurt out, upset. So what does that mean?
Nothing. Just that the state was in charge of the burial, that's all.
Where is he? My words increase in anxiety as the need to see his gravesite amplifies.
Mount Olivet, here in Chicago.
I have to go.
Elizabeth, you're upset. Why don't we take a little time and—
No, I bellow.
I think you should just—
Declan, I say, cutting his words off, refusing to wait any longer to see where my brother's buried. If this were your mom and I told you to take some time, would you be able to do that? He doesn't answer me. I didn't think so, I tell him, and he sees my point when he says,
I'll call the valet to pull the car around.
I throw my jacket on before we head down to the lobby where Declan's Mercedes Roadster is already waiting for us out front. I watch as the light drizzle from outside collects on the windshield and then gets wiped away with the wipers, and suddenly, the urgency I was feeling back at Lotus has dissipated. Pike is dead, and I'm not going to the cemetery to say goodbye because he's still with me. But it's a sinking feeling. Maybe a part of me is still in denial, but it's the thought of seeing his name on a burial plot that I fear. Declan begins to speed when we merge onto I-90 East, and I look over to him, asking somberly, Can you slow down? He draws his foot back off the accelerator, slowing the car.
Is everything okay?
I look out of my window, raindrops skewing my view, and admit, I'm scared. He takes my hand, but I keep my head turned away from him.
We don't have to do this right now if you're not ready.
Is anybody ever ready? The question is heavy between us as I turn to face him. He holds my hand tighter and doesn't respond. He needs flowers, I tell him. Can we stop and get him some flowers?
Of course, darling.
I pull out my phone and find a florist not too far from the interstate, and when we arrive, my request is simple. I need all the pink daisies you have in stock.
Daisies?
Declan questions when the sales clerk goes to the back cooler. They're my favorite.
I remember,
he says with a subtle smile, and then kisses the top of my head, resting his lips there for a moment while we wait for the lady to reappear. Any shade of pink? The woman hollers from the back. Yes, mix them, I shout back to her. All of them. I wait with Declan's arm wrapped around me, tucking me against his side, and when the clerk reemerges from the back, my eyes widen.
Christ, that's a lot of flowers,
Declan notes in surprise. 163 stems, she tells us. You wiped me out of inventory. I watch as she wraps the daisies in huge sheets of brown paper and ties them up with several cords of natural raffia. It's perfect, thank you. Declan pays and takes the flowers in his arms. Popping the trunk, he lays the bouquet down and we both laugh a little when they fill the trunk entirely. We continue our drive, hitting light patches of traffic, and finally arrive at the gates of Mount Olivet. He parks the car at the funeral home that's right through the entrance.
I'm going to go grab a map. I'll be right back.
An eerie chill creeps along my arms, and it only takes a minute for Declan to reappear with a map in hand. Where is he?
Block 2,
he murmurs as he pulls out of the parking space and drives through the cemetery. I look at the gray headstones as we pass them, and before I know it, he's pulling the car along the edge of the grass.
This is it,
he says, turning the car off. I look out the window and choke up, knowing that somewhere among all these gravestones is my brother, and he's all alone. I battle between not wanting to get out of this car and jumping out of this car to run to him. I'm so scared to see the evidence of what I've done. Tears spill down my cheeks effortlessly, and Declan reaches his arm over to console me. This is all my fault, I strain out on a hoarse voice filled with anguish. I turn to face Declan, and he doesn't say a word. I know what he's thinking. It's the same thing I'm thinking. No one can argue that this is very much my fault, and Declan isn't a man who will lie to comfort. We both know my part in all of this, and it makes it so much worse when there's no truth out there that can take away any amount of my responsibility.
Do you want me to come with you?
He asks, and I nod, because I know I can't do this alone. We get out of the car, and he grabs the flowers from the trunk, placing them in my arms. With his arm wrapped around my shoulder, he leads the way. We walk around, looking at the names on the grave markers as my tears drip into the mass of daisies. We wander for what feels like hours, but is probably only a minute before Declan stops.
Elizabeth.
I look up at him, and he tilts his head over to a flat stone, and when I see it, I gasp in horror. Oh my God! And there it is, his beautiful name engraved in stone, marking his death. I step in front of it, my body shuddering in tormenting pain. Every dagger I've ever thrown coming right back to stab me in my chest, and Declan has to step behind me with both of his hands gripping my shoulders. How could I have done this? I cry, and then fall to my knees and out of Declan's hands as I clutch the flowers to my chest. He was my best friend, Declan.
I know.
His tender voice consoles as he now sits behind me. I lay the flowers on the grass beside me and lean forward on my knees, bracing my hands on top of his name. I'm so sorry, Pike. I should have just killed myself. My words lose themselves within my agonizing sobs and falter when I can't focus on anything aside from the debilitating guilt and remorse. It should have been me. It should have been me, I wail repeatedly. Declan reaches around my waist and pulls me away, off my knees and onto my bottom, and I fall back into him. I grab a hold of his arms crossing over my chest and dig my nails into them as I sob, wishing I would have shot myself that day. He didn't deserve to die. Shh, Declan breathes in my ear. I know, baby. I know. It should have been me, I keep saying as Declan continues to hush and console me. His hold on me is merciless as I allow every emotion to swallow me up, and when it finally relents and spits me out, I'm utterly spent. The dipping sun measures the hours we've been here. My body aches as I move to sit up on my own, and when I turn back to look at Declan, I notice his bloodshot eyes. He's been crying with me. I'm sorry, I say, my throat dry and scratchy. Don't be. You needed to get that out. You hold so much inside of you. I'm a horrible person. You're not, he tells me. You made horrible choices, but you're not a horrible person. I don't believe you. Maybe not today, but one day you will. I'm going to make you believe me. He stands and reaches down to me, helping me up. When I'm steady on my feet, I turn and scoot the flowers to rest over where Pike lies. I take a moment, drained of all my tears, not to say goodbye, but to pay respect to the most selfless person I've ever known. Chapter 18. Time freezes, and yet the sun rises and the sun sets, only to rise once again. I woke yesterday but was unable to get out of bed. Too much guilt. Too much sorrow in a world filled with regrets. So I hid under the covers and slept, and woke, and slept. Declan checked on me throughout the day, allowing me to wallow in the misery of my wrongdoings. He ordered food from the kitchen, but I couldn't eat. I couldn't risk feeding the pain for fear it would devour me fully. Emptiness is my companion as I stand here and stare out the window up into the blue sky. It's been 2 days since I faced Pike's resting place, and although I haven't seen him or heard his voice, I've felt his arms around me ever since. You're up, Declan says when he walks into the room, dressed down in dark denim and a plain cotton t-shirt. How are you feeling? Numb. He walks over to me, saying, I'm going to make you feel something today, before kissing me. Get dressed. What are we doing? Whatever we want. He smirks and then shuts the door behind him. After I shower and pull my hair together, I match his leisurely attire and opt for jeans and a fitted top. When I walk out into the living room, he stands with my jacket already in his hands. You're up to no good, I tease. You look stunning. Yeah, I quip. You're definitely up to no good. Once we reach the lobby, he leads me out to the busy streets of the Loop and hails a cab. A cab? Where's your car? We're lying low today. Trust me, he says when he opens the door for me. I scoot across the back seat, and Declan tells the cabbie, Navy Pier. Navy Pier? You ever been? Oddly, no. You? I ask. No. So why are we going? Why not? His spontaneity makes me smile, and I make the mindful choice to hand myself over to him today. Because, after all, he's the reason I keep going. We're among all the tourists when we hop out of the cab. 2 people who blend in with all the others. We walk hand in hand into a souvenir shop and look at all the trinkets, and Declan thinks he's cute when he buys me a cheesy Chicago shirt that reads, It's better in the bleachers, across the front. Wasted money. He takes the shirt and slips it over my head, saying, Then you better wear it and not let it go to waste. He pulls it down, and when I push my arms out of the sleeves, he takes a step back and smiles. Are you happy now? He laughs. You look cute. With a roll of my eyes, I join in with a light chuckle. He's blithe and light-hearted, and it's refreshing to see this side of him, We've had so many days filled with dark clouds and suffocating emotions, but to see that rays of light can break through those clouds gives me hope for us. We walk along the water, enjoying the spring breeze. He buys me a funnel cake when I tell him I've never tasted one, and then licks the powdered sugar off my lips after I inhale the fried treat. When I'm thoroughly buzzed with sweet carbs, he takes me up to the Ferris wheel. Come on. No way, Declan. That is way too high. What are you saying? Tough as nails Elizabeth is scared of heights. Yeah, I admit with my head craned back, looking up at the enormous wheel. It's a Ferris wheel, he exclaims. Yes, I know this, I say, and with my arm up towards it, I exasperate. And it's a death trap. He shakes his head, laughing. It's the mildest ride here. Don't care. You're not getting me on that thing. He releases a heavy sigh and succumbs. All right, no Ferris wheel. Taking my hand, he says, I've got something better in mind. We make our way over to a small fishing vendor pavilion on the north dock. With bait and rods in hand, we find a spot to cast our lines. Give me your rod, and I'll hook the bait for you. I'm capable of hooking it myself, I say with a confident air. Go for it, darling. His eyes watch as I dunk my hand into the bait bucket, pull out a shiner, and pierce the hook through it. Looking up at him holding his rod, I tease, You need me to help you? I'm impressed. I came from the streets, Declan. Baiting a hook is nothing, I tell him with a smirk, and then cast my line into the water. So, I take it you've fished before. I watch him cast his line out and respond, No, not really. Only once with my dad. He would hold the rod for me, and when we would get a bite, he'd let me reel it in. What about you? All the time. When I was living here, I'd take my boat out during my downtime, which wasn't often, but I'd get away when I could and toss out a line or two. I got something! I practically squeal when something tugs on my line. I laugh with childish excitement, and then a little fish surfaces. It's a perch. He takes the small fish and pulls the hook out, all the while smiling at me. I'm winning, I brag, and when he tosses the fish back into the water, he says, I wasn't aware this was a competition. Well, now you are, and you're losing. I grab another shiner from the bucket and cast my line. Tell me a story, I request. Something good. My darling wants a story, he says to himself, and then takes a moment, squinting against the sunlight reflecting off the water. I did my undergrad at the University of Edinburgh, and was living at my fraternity house. We used to throw a lot of parties. I was never much of a drinker, but it was the end of exam week, and I'd been under a lot of stress. The girl I was seeing at the time was at a party that night, and I had gotten piss drunk. She told me she was going to call it a night and crash in my room since she had been drinking too. She was nowhere near as drunk as I was, but still drunk enough that she knew better than to drive. He pauses when his rod dips, another small perch. 1-1, it's a tie, he says with a grin, and then continues when he grabs another shiner. Anyway, I stayed up for a few more hours before stumbling upstairs to my room. I was so wasted, and all I can remember is stripping off my clothes while everything around me was spinning. I pulled the sheets back and slipped in behind what I assumed was my girlfriend. It wasn't? Each room housed 3 guys. I start laughing, and it isn't long before he joins me. I spent the whole night in my underpants, snuggling with my roommate, Bean. Bean? Yeah. He had a bit of a flatulence issue. I burst out laughing. Once I realized I wasn't cuddling my girlfriend, it was too late. A few of my frat brothers were standing in the doorway, snapping photos of the supposed indiscretion. What did your girlfriend say? Well, she was upset I got drunk and ignored her all night, and that was the end of her. You're an ass, I snicker, to which he replies, So I've been told. I startle and clutch my fishing rod when it's nearly yanked out of my hands. Grabbing a hold of the reel, I struggle to crank it. I need help, I call, and Declan sets his rod down, moves behind me, and grips the rod.
You've got something big,
he says when he puts his hand over mine and helps me reel in the line just like my dad used to. I let him take control and move my hand with his. The fish fights us for a bit, and when it approaches the water's surface, I see how substantial it is. What is that? I ask excitedly. He pulls it up, announcing,
It's a big fucking bass.
He kneels, pinning the fish down with his foot, and removes the hook.
You want to keep it? We could have the chef in the kitchen prepare it for dinner tonight.
Looking at the fish flopping around, I tell him, No, let him live.
You sure?
I'm sure. Declan drops the bass into the water, looks over the pier's edge, and watches him as he swims down, disappearing into the lake. I bait my hook and return to our conversation, saying, A part of me always wanted to do the whole college thing.
You still could.
With shame, I confess to him, I never even graduated high school, Declan. He looks at me, and there's a hint of surprise in his eyes.
How far did you get?
I never